everybody, and welcome in on a Tuesday, May the 9th, the Maize Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football, where we talk about the Maize and Blue. And we've got a good one for you today with a lot of things regarding Michigan and their football team. You got a pair of Michigan defenders that make the Lott watch list. We'll talk about those two players coming up straight ahead. Also, the MSHOF, that's the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. I was looking at the ballot of former professionals, coaches, and media that are on the ballot for this year, and it's littered with a maize and blue flavor. So we'll walk through that a little bit and see who is worthy, how I would vote, and just walk through that a little bit, have some fun with the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame ballot. But we're going to start with the topic of cutting grass, a cut above, and that is Jim Harbaugh, which I would think you're a Michigan fan that you have seen the story about Jim Harbaugh and cutting grass. First, Michigan, they've been doing a fabulous job recruiting, and they're the number one ranked team in the 24 recruiting rankings right now. They just got Shannon Goodwin, the son of Jonathan Goodwood, the former Wolverine. Everyone likes a good story, a legacy recruit. That is what's going on here. But then you have the question about who is next. And for that, you want to sign up with the Maize and Blue Review to know who is going to be next. Who's got next? You join up the Maize and Blue Review by going to michigan.rivals.com. I urge you to do that for the latest and best in Michigan news. Go ahead and join up. Go to michigan.rivals.com. I'll be excited to see you over there on the posting board. Now, the winning quote from Jim Harbaugh via Pat Forty from Sports Illustrated, their college football guy, who got an interview with the coach, and he asked him, I believe, if he wasn't a coach, what vocation of trade would he be involved with? And Harbaugh had an answer ready. He said, mowing grass. And he said, this is the quote from Harbaugh, mowing the lawn is one of the great feelings I have in life. Now, I know people that like mowing their grass. I mean, I really do. And maybe I just have never really thought about it. And I have thought about it over the last 24 hours, because if you've ever lived in a subdivision, that there is a competition about, who's got the best lawn. And, I just think back, I don't live in a subdivision right now, but, I think back when I did, man, there are some people that spend all day, as much as they can on their lawn, manicuring it. And, they would be in the same line of thinking as Harbaugh there, where, they did it. And, they like perfection. They like, how it looks, of course, it makes your house beautiful and everything else. But I never heard anybody say that cutting the grass is one of the great feelings in life. So, that's where we start. We just think about that, just at least makes you, ponder it, makes you, think about it a little bit when it comes down with Harbaugh. And when he says that, he had a couple other things that I thought were if you're like, oh, I don't want to talk about grass, that's fine. I've got some things that I thought were interesting when it came down to what else Harbaugh said. But people that just go out there and, I enjoy myself a freshly mowed yard, but actually mowing it, I've never thought like, oh man, this is great. I do think afterwards, back when I would go get my hair cut, I don't know if I necessarily looked forward to going and getting it done. There were times where I might have been a stylist and, I actually enjoyed the process, but for the most part, it was like, but afterwards, I liked how my hair looked. A new haircut, back in the day. For those of you who don't know, I don't need the barber anymore. I'm my own barber. Works really well. And it's the same thing when it comes down to the lawn with me. I like the lawn. I think it looks great after it's done. I like, leaving the house and you come back after it's mowed and you're like, look, and you're like, you know what? This looks really good. I mean, nothing with your yard looks better than when, it's mowed. But then you think, well, then you got to edge and then you got to rake and then you got to have somebody, aerate, fertilize, get those weeds out of there, yard work in general. Uh, I, I, uh, I can't say that I've ever been like, oh man, this is awesome. But I like people that are enthusiastic about things. And so for Harbaugh, thinking that this is one of the great joys in life, it was a little bit of a surprise to me, and I'd never heard anybody, talk about it as such. But Harbaugh, that's when some people say Harbaugh's weird. Well, Harbaugh's, he's different than like if you're just your average person, your average coach, if there is such a thing. He's got a zest for life and things that he's doing out there. I don't like Judge Judy, but you listen to Harbaugh talk about Judge Judy, and he's like he loves watching Judge Judy, which is weird. I don't know about weird, but people like whatever. But he likes that, and he likes mowing grass. And so there it is. But there were some other things that I thought about what Harbaugh had to say to Pat Forty that I wasn't 100% sure that he had commented on, and I will get to that coming up. I just want to see if anybody had anything to say about the grass. Further, there's Andres. Further proof Jim is a nut mowing the grass, and it looks like that's the trash emoji. Yeah, Andres, I don't know about it being trash, but it's not something that I'm like looking forward to. So, that's Harbaugh. There were, I guess, two things that when I looked at some of the quotes from Harbaugh in Pat Forty's interview that he had with him, I think Harbaugh said somewhere since last year that this upcoming season is his best team yet. I kind of remember, I just don't remember exactly when he said it, but he said it again to 40. He said that he has his best team yet at Michigan. And so you're a Michigan fan. You know that Harbaugh has gone 25-3 over the past two seasons. Had the TCU loss, Georgia, and the Michigan State one. That's it over the last 2 years. And as we have been talking about even this week, the Maize Blue should start this upcoming season ranked in the top 3. 40 said maybe even number 1. I don't know. It wouldn't be I guess it wouldn't be a huge shock if Michigan was number 1. I would vote him number 2 behind Georgia. Georgia 1, Michigan 2. But I think they'll be in the top 3. So that's up there. Obviously, when it comes down, at least in the offseason, as you look ahead to the college football season, you should feel good about Michigan's chances. When people say, how do you think Michigan's going to be? You can defer to the experts and say, the experts think they're going to be pretty good. I think you think they're going to be pretty good too. So I thought I wasn't 100% sure, but Harbaugh saying it again, that this is his best team. And I thought, do I agree with that? The 21 team with Cade at the helm and a Haskins Corum duo in the backfield, and the defense with Hutchinson and Ajabo. I thought after 21 that defense would have been the best, but the 22 defense was better, and so was the 21 offense. I'm sorry. The 22 offense and defense ended up being better than the 21 on both sides of the ball. And then obviously, you get the same kicker in Moody, but he was even better than he was the year before. So 22, the team was better than 21. And then this year, Harbaugh's saying he has his best team yet at Michigan. And I like it. And I agree with that. I like this when Harbaugh was asked about if this year Michigan will win a national championship. It's straight to the point. A lot of times coaches, I think even Harbaugh, give you one of those coach speak answers like, we have our goals, that we set with our captains in fall ball that we keep within the locker room. They say things like that, it's like, it's a little bit of an eye roll when I hear that. It's basically you're ducking the question. Harbaugh did not duck that question last year when he was at the Big Ten Media Days. And he did not duck the question when he was asked by Pat Forty over the last couple days if this year Michigan will win a national championship. Here's what Harbaugh had to say. Quote, fate is in our hands. I firmly believe we have the license and the ability to do it. Now, that's a very Jim Harbaugh type comment. Like, fate is in our hands. I like it. That's get a little mysterious to it. What, fate is in our hand. I do like this quote. And I'm not sure that he has said exactly this, although maybe he has. I'm sorry to be a little bit like not knowing exactly if what he had to say before that he thought this was his best team, or in terms of winning a national championship, if he said it just like this, that the fate is in our hands and he believes that they have the license and ability to do it. I love the quote. I don't, there's sometimes as much as even over the last 2 years, when Harbaugh does something, there'll be a lot of people, even in the media, complete, just Michigan homers, fanboys. It's fine. It's working for him and everything else. It doesn't matter what Jim Harbaugh says. They're like, this guy's doing the greatest thing ever. Everything he says. It's not always been like that, even the last 2 years. But this, I'm right with everyone. I like exactly how he's handling this. I agree with him about, the team. And it's a little bit surprising because coaches in the last 2 years are outstanding teams, and what they did, winning the Big Ten, beating Ohio State, and Harbaugh saying that this team, which, I think he's telling the truth. Coaches don't always do that. He thinks this could be the best team yet. That's awesome to hear from the coach. Can they win the national championship? You could just say, hey, we want to win the Big Ten first, whatever. No, he didn't say that. Fate is in our hands. I feel like this should be, James Earl Jones saying it. I can't quite see if I can speak it from my diaphragm. Fate is in our hands. I firmly believe we have the license and the ability to do it. So says Jim Harbaugh. I love it. I love it. Andre says he doesn't think Jim has been this confident since he benched Alex Smith. Well, Andres, he didn't exactly bench Alex Smith. Alex Smith got injured. And so he was able to put the backup in. Now, he just kept the backup in and kept Alex Smith on the bench. But I would not call what Jim Harbaugh did when he was with the 49ers benching Alex Smith. But, that's me. So do you have any thoughts? This is one of those shows where I'm interested to hear what you have to say. I liked how Harbaugh handled the question about Michigan winning the national championship this year. And I also liked him saying that this is his best team yet. Let's go to the feedback. Here is Antoine, who is talking about Michigan getting another player, John Weidenbach. I don't know much about, but Dennis, can you find out the depth chart situation? Michigan must have a way of hiding players. I know this way of hiding players. I just don't know where Michigan is hiding all of these players. Well, Weidenbach is going to be a walk-on. So I think a preferred walk-on, and I think he's a linebacker. So there's no hiding a preferred walk-on, but there is something to what you're saying. If you count up all of the scholarships with Michigan, you think like it doesn't add up to 85. There's still looks to be quite a bit of attrition that's going to happen. Michigan has had some, we know, like RJ Moten and the Kai Hill Green and others, AJ Henning, who have hit the transfer portal. But if you're going to be around 85, you would think it should be more. Now, what is made it a little bit fuzzy, I think, are two things. One is the COVID year where guys can just get another year. Even though they're around, it's like, oh yeah, COVID year. And then the other one is name, image, and likeness. And maybe Michigan's got something going on there where they're bringing in players and they're not promising them money up front, but they can, I don't know how they, get around promising money down the line. And for players that stay around with the football program, if you stay, you'll be rewarded. How they're doing that, I don't exactly know when it comes down, but I think it has to do with name, image, and likeness or COVID, extra bonus year when it comes to those two things. Either way, they have more than what you would think would be the allotted number of players, but that's all right. You take advantage of what the system has for you, especially when it's an above board. There's a lot of teams that are taking advantage a little bit below board, but nobody cares about NIL. And we all know for the millionth time, Michigan is not going that way. So maybe they're doing it another way. And, I don't think anybody's got a problem with it unless you're not a Michigan fan. Let's see. We got more from Antoine. He's got a couple going here. He says, I told you missing was going to be good the last 2 years. Now I'm telling you it won't stop anytime soon. Missing. I told you missing. I don't get that. I told you the first 2 years Michigan was going to be good. You thought I was crazy. Now I'm telling you it won't stop. Okay. That clears it up. I'm glad you came back and cleared up your thought. Antoine, you did tell me, I'm sorry, excuse me, that last year you thought Michigan was going to beat Ohio State. And I think you've done that the last 2 years. So you are right there. And I don't know. I don't know if I thought you were crazy. I thought you were just a big Michigan fan that is just putting the Wolverines like about it's, and I know that you have this hatred for Ohio State, like all Michigan fans do, and like you say things, and I didn't know if I could take it. I'm like, I know a little bit more. I mean, you look at the game very closely. We should take what you say seriously because you study the game and you watch it. And I do that now. So you get your props. I mean, should I give you your props every day? Remember, Antoine, the last 2 years, I'm going to do it today. And I'll try to do it the rest of this week. Remember, folks, the last 2 years, Antoine told everybody, even before the season started, that Michigan was going to beat Ohio State. He saw the cracks in the armor down in Columbus. And, he said that Michigan was going to be able to beat him 2 years ago. And he said they were going to go down there last year and they were going to do it again. And now he doesn't think it's stopping anytime soon. So that's all good news too. Harbaugh thinks he's got the best team since he's been at Michigan. He thinks, the fate line about Michigan, of being able to win it all. It's there for them. And then Antoine also feels like the beat should continue on from what he has seen from Michigan and the other teams. So excellent. So what you're saying is that fate wasn't in Alex's hands. That's right. Mark, who is with us, quick count on Michigan TDs with 20 plus yard plays from last year. 4 of 5 against TCU, 5 of 5 against OSU, 4 of 6 against Purdue, 1 against Illinois. I'm sorry. Oh, 1 for 1. I got confused. 4 of 5 against TCU, 5 of 5 against OSU, 4 of 6 against Purdue, 1 for 1 against Illinois, and 3 for 4 against Nebraska. Need I count anymore to prove to you the 50% claim? I didn't count run versus pass, but passing surely helps big plays. And this goes back to yesterday. Passing surely helps big plays. I'm with you on that, Mark. There's no doubt about that. There is no doubt that passing helps big plays. But I would also point to you that, I don't know, go to the Penn State game where you had both Corum and Edwards, ripping off to those back-to-back, long touchdown runs. I don't really care if they're running or passing. You can do it either way. I want to be able to do both. I think this year, J.J. McCarthy, with a year under his belt, how much better is he going to be? I think it will reflect in a lot of different areas, but I think one of the main ones is going to be he's going to be a better passer down the field, which will play into your big play. So I think you and I might be closer to being on the same page than maybe, we think. PS1 of the Purdue non-20-yard TDs was only a 16-yard total. Yeah, sometimes I don't know. Okay. Antoine is predicting that Ohio State will lose to Notre Dame. Andre's jumping on Mark's point about big plays. You prove that Michigan hits big plays. In fact, I'm pretty sure Michigan was top 10 in big plays last year. Andres, I think over the last 2 years, was it last year or was it the year before? Michigan was number 1. Well, it depends where you're saying, some sites, some people that in some ways that people count. Some think big plays are over 25 yards. Some, as Mark indicates, are over 20 yards. But there was I think it was 2 years ago. Michigan was number 1 in plays over 50 yards in the country, and they were up there again. I think they were pretty close. Maybe they're number 1 the last 2 years. I'll have to look at that. In plays above 50 yards. The last 2 years kind of run together. One of those years, they were number 1 in plays over 50 yards in the country. You're doing pretty good when that happens, That's what I'm talking about. Let's do it. Let's see. Richard is getting in, and he says he's been listening. His 2 cents is Michigan will be a running Goliath again this year with an improved passing game, which will make it even bigger. Yeah, that's right, Richard. I think that's well said. I believe that as well. I think Michigan wants to hang their hat on being physical and being able to run the ball. And Jim Harbaugh has proven over the last 2 years that if you're up and you're protecting the lead and you're running the ball, there's no reason they get it. I don't want to say go crazy, but there's no reason to start throwing it too much if you're in control of the game. It reminds me of 2 years ago against Washington when the Huskies came in. And it was the first half. It was only 10-0 at the half, and Michigan was dominating Washington. And I can remember because I was feeling it myself. I was looking online, and people were like, if Harbaugh comes out and starts running the ball in the second half, I'm going to throw something at my TV. It was essentially what people were saying. If he doesn't throw the ball, they're going to lose this game. Like variations on that. And what did Harbaugh and Michigan do coming out in the second half? They ran the ball. They ran it right. They ran it left. They ran it up the middle, and then they kept running it. Even when they get up 17-0, you're thinking, well, no. They kept running it 56 times for 343 yards. And because they just kept running it at 10 yards a clip in the second half, all of the, myself included, like they're going to have to throw if they want to be a good team in college football and work on it. No, they didn't have to. They were establishing their identity and they were forcing it on everybody. And they're like, look, no, we don't have to throw it as much as you guys want. We can do it this way. And that was the start, say, of all of this. But all of this is the last 2 years, and then looking towards this one where Michigan is barged into elite college football territory. Previous to 21, obviously, they had the clunker in the pandemic year, and then all of the losses to they weren't crashing any elite college football party. They had the the scarlet and gray elephant in the room that they couldn't get past, and now they have. Oh, I think that the difference this year is that Michigan's going to want to be able to do it all, and they're going to try to do it all, and I think they will be able to do it all from what I've seen with J.J. McCarthy. A lot of that is going to be on his right arm. A lot of it's going to with his legs too, and deciding when to run. He's an excellent quarterback. He could be a great quarterback. You might even be ready to call him a great quarterback. I'm close to calling him a great quarterback. I think that you're going to watch him this year and say, okay, he is better. Now the downfield passing, he is a great quarterback. I think that's what's shaking. That's what's going down. Let's see. Couple more. Andres, I'm 99% certain Michigan was one in big plays at some point last season. There you go, Andres. I don't want to be wrong either. Mark following up with big play talk says, it's just really hard to have long drives with lots of plays. Really hard. Miami under Jimmy Johnson was first to really emphasize chunk plays and then take them whenever possible. I disagree that it's really hard to have long drives with lots of plays. Michigan, one of the hallmarks of the Wolverines over the last 2 years in almost all of their games is that they have had double-digit drives with lots of plays. A big time of possession, Mark, big time, double-digit plays, 15 plays, 7 minutes, 28 seconds, touchdown. And look, I'm going to say it again. I don't mind a quick strike touchdown. In fact, I love a bomb, and I think there's going to be more of them this year. I love the Cornelius Johnson touchdowns against Ohio State, both of them in the first half. But what I can tell you is that I really like a 15-play, 80-yard, 9-minute, and 10-second drive. That shows not just hitting one gigantic play, chunk play that you're talking about, which is important and that you want to have, but it shows you a domination of your opponent, that you can take their will and that you can be more physical than your opponent and take them down the field. Now, Mark, you might be a little bit more new age than me. That might be a little bit old school, that I want to have a 15-play, 10-minute drive. You want a 3-play, 75-yard, 51-second touchdown play. You know, that's exciting. It is. I want them both. Dave, do you know what's really hard? Being the defense that realizes that they can't stop long drives. Yeah, that's right. 0, I think. I don't know what 0 long drives against Ohio State. JP, we run the clock. We're not snapping over 10 seconds on the play clock. We have, and we will continue to use the clock to our advantage. Time of possession. Well, with Harbaugh, I made a little, he had a graphic that was up last year at the Big Ten coaches meetings when he had the 2022 Michigan goals. And you remember the goals. And I like this when he said it. This was not Harbaugh giving you any coach speak. This wasn't like, our team goals are eternalized. We have lofty goals. We're not telling that, these are things that we keep in the locker room, yada, yada, like you hear from a lot of coaches. Harbaugh last year was like, we want to beat Michigan State. We want to beat Ohio State. We want to win the Big Ten. And we want to win the national championship. Check, check, check. And now, the Natty. He's talking about it again. Michigan's 23 goals. Beat your rivals. Win the Big Ten for a third time and win the national championship. Let's go. Scott, the leader of the Ernest Hausman fan club, you are all welcome to join. Scott, I want to be first in there. I'm in the Hausman fan club. It's a good jumping off point to our next topic. And that is, there are these watch lists that you're familiar with if you're a college football fan. There's a bunch of them, but it's nice. And what we've seen over the last 2 years, like award shows, trophy watches, all of this, when you're a good football team and you're winning, a lot of your players populate the watch lists and actually bring home the hardware. That brings us to the Ronnie Lott Impact Trophy. Ronnie Lott, big hitter from SC who went on with the 49ers, won Super Bowls with Joe Montana and Bill Walsh and all that, has the Lott Impact Trophy, famously sawed off his, they saw off his pinky during a game and he kept playing like, this pinky, I don't need it, snapped it off. Something like that, close to that. Maybe you don't snap off your pinky or saw it off, but he just kept playing. Ronnie Lott. They don't come tougher than Lott. A pair of Wolverines named to the Lott Impact Trophy list. And boom. Junior Colson, the linebacker, number 25. He makes the Lott watch list, and so does corner Will Johnson. Will Johnson is every Michigan fan loves themselves some Will Johnson, and for good reasons. He is great. Michigan fans, they don't all appreciate. I think Colson is a little bit underappreciated by Michigan fans. I thought that this was the case last year and the year before with Blake Corum. Blake Corum nationally for the last 2 years, people are like, hey, this guy's a great back. Last year, this guy's a great back. And some of the Michigan fans were like, I don't know about Blake. But, now they're all aboard the Corum bandwagon. I think that this is the case with Colson nationally. Here he is on the Lott watch list. But Michigan fans are like, I'm not even sure he should be starting. So fun to keep an eye on. Junior Colson, Will Johnson, previous winners of the Lott Award, Aiden Hutchinson, and Jabril Peppers. They brought home the hardware. That's good stuff. So keep an eye on that watch list, the Lott watch list. All right. I was going through Twitter and I saw that the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, the Lions put up the ballot of some of the players that were on the Lions. And what surprised me, not that Kevin Glover and Benny Blades were on the ballot, but both Larry Foote and Drew Henson were. And I was like, wait, Larry Foote and Drew Henson play for the Lions? And I like to think that I follow sports as much as anyone. I would like to think that I follow Michigan and the Lions more than anyone, or as much as anyone out there. And I'm not sure, and I've struggled with this for the last 24 hours. I wasn't 100% sure that Drew Henson played for the Lions. But in the last 24 hours, I thought, maybe I remember. And maybe the same thing with Larry Foote. I mean, I love Larry Foote. But what I thought, this would be one of the things, and I don't know if it's something that scares me or not, but if they had some kind of like sports Jeopardy or something, and somehow I was able to be a contestant, and I would be up there, and I'd feel pretty good because I'm halfway decent at it. I don't think I'm like the greatest in sports trivia or anything, but I've spent my life in it. I'm not half bad. I think I'm better than your average person. So that's it. But if it came down to it, it said Michigan football and the Detroit Lions, and that was one of the categories, I'd have been like, oh, I like this category. And if it said Drew Henson played for the Lions, and I would have been like, or it said what quarterback, I don't think I would have been ringing in and saying Drew Henson. Or if they said something about Larry Foote Jr. playing for the Detroit Lions, something about the Steelers, I'd have been right there. But the Lions, I don't remember. Maybe it's, and psychologists are able to describe this sometimes. If you have a real bad memory where you're young, you completely black it out, and so you don't remember. I think this is at least what I'm thinking over the last 24 hours. The Lions have put me through the ringer so many times over the years when they have these seasons that are just like horrendously bad, and it goes all the way back to my youth. I just black it out and I don't remember it at all. And it keeps me safe that way. And I think that's what happened because I love Drew Henson and I love Larry Foote, and yet I didn't know that they played for the Detroit Lions at all. So, hey, I think it's got something to do with how bad the Lions have been and my brain. But that's at least what I'm thinking. But when I saw that those guys were both on the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame ballot, I went ahead and looked at that ballot. And to my surprise, I saw a number of Wolverines that are on the ballot. So I thought it would be fun just to go through them. And just this as an aside, I have been to one of the banquets for the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. It was down at the atrium at Ford Field, and it couldn't have been any nicer of a ceremony. I can, Ford Field is spectacular. The atrium over there. As I get older, I like award shows more. It asked me when I was 20, I'd have been, no, thanks. When is this thing over? Give me another drink, anything like that. But, you get a little older, maybe you know the people more, you appreciate what they're saying, all of those sort of things. But I had a spectacular time, and the whole thing, they have, I don't know what they call it, like a little ceremony before, or just a little, kind of hang out before. I know there's a better name for that. Before the ceremony, before the dinner, you're just over there, those little appetizers or whatever. And you walk around, and a lot of the people that are in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, they come back. And so you're walking around, and I can remember just standing there, and here's like terrible Ted Lindsay. And he's like, hey, I'm over here talking to Ted Lindsay. It was great. It was a great time. So I say all that as I'm a fan of the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. So here's some of the Maize and Blue flavor on the ballot, and anybody can vote. So you get in there, and you can vote early. I don't know. I guess how many emails you have. I don't know if they block you, if you can just keep voting. But how about the professional finalists? Larry Foote, as we've already talked about, there he is on the list. Larry, born in Detroit, went to Pershing, linebacker at Michigan from 98 to 2001, all Big Ten twice, first team All-American, and Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Played 13 NFL seasons with the Steelers, Cardinals, and Lions. Won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers. Larry Foote, I love him. He would get one of my votes. I wasn't aware that Tony Esposito played his hockey at Michigan Tech, so that was a little bit surprising to me. Benny Blades, of all, I have a story about Benny Blades that I'm going to tell here as well. I played basketball on Fridays at Schoolcraft College back in 1989. And there was a guy that played with us every Friday that looked just like Benny Blades. He looked so much like Benny Blades that I always call him Blades. And I'd always be like, good game, Benny Blades. Good game, Benny Blades. Like kind of as a joke, like, hey, you look just like Benny Blades. One of the last times that this guy that looked like Benny Blades was there was a guy next to him and said, hey, could you sign this football for me? And I was over there and I was like, is that Benny Blades? And it was. And I felt kind of stupid. Like, I may have played for a couple months with him, and I was always joking around, calling him Benny Blades. And he was always like, why is this guy always just like calling me Benny Blades, Benny Blades? He must have thought, he's a little funny, this guy, always like that. It actually was Benny Blades, and I never knew it. That's my Benny Blades story. And there it is. Wouldn't be bad if see old Benny make the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. So you got Larry Foote in there, and some others, Pudge, who played for the Tigers. I was surprised that Ken Morrow, who played for the Miracle on Ice team in 1980. So he won the gold in 1980 and then won 4 Stanley Cups, that he is not in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. Ken Morrow is the answer to a trivia question that is a good one. Who has a USA gold medal and a Stanley Cup? Answer, Davison's old Ken Morrow is the answer. He should be in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. There's the Tool Man, Tim Thomas, Henrik Zetterberg. And, you know, if I had 3 votes, I would vote for Larry Foote Jr., Ken Morrow, and Benny Blades in that order. So now they have amateur finalists. The first 3 are all former Wolverines. Jim Harbaugh. How about that? 86 winner of the Chicago Tribune Silver Football Trophy for the Big Ten's MVP. Finished 3rd in the Heisman Trophy voting and was a first-team All-American. I would have guessed that Jim Harbaugh would have already been in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, but obviously I'm incorrect. I would have also thought that Drew Henson would have already been in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. Drew Henson was not just a good amateur baseball player, he was one of the greatest amateur baseball players ever. And then he was great at Michigan as a quarterback from 98 to 2000 as well. Led the Wolverines to a Big Ten championship. And until this year was the last quarterback that started a game for the Wolverines when they won in Columbus. Drew Henson. There's Jake Long, the former number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. He's from Lapeer. How about Mark Messner, the amateur finalists here? This is like a who's who. Messner, Ryan Miller, the Sparty goaltender. Sean Respert, sharpshooter from State. Great shooter if you go back, if you're old enough to remember Respert playing. Sierra Romero, the great Michigan softball player. 4 Big Ten Conference titles. Finished runner-up in the College World Series. Michigan first softball player to earn All-American honors 4 times. Romero. Now, as I said, you could vote for all of these on a scale from 1 to 10. There's Low White, who was a great running back from Michigan State, and then the great Lamar Woodley, who John L. Smith smacked across the face one time. Lamar was telling that story when he was being recruited, and Lamar was just eating a hot dog, and that didn't help. There was a guy that I knew who was a Michigan fan. I was at a party, and this was after a Michigan game, and he came up to me and he said, I want to tell you about the greatest football player that I've ever seen. And I was like, okay. He's like, he's a freshman. He's a freshman in Saginaw. And I'm listening to the guy as a party, like, all right, go ahead. And so he's telling me about Lamar Woodley. He's like, this kid hits players and sends them into the sideline sideways and injures coaches that he hits them so hard. he's going to be the greatest football player of all time. You got to remember the name Lamar Woodley. So the guy's telling me, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to remember the name. I remembered the name, and he wasn't so far off. Lamar Woodley was a great football player. He was one of the great football players of all time. And, actually, the guy he is related to a friend of mine. So I've brought that story up. And he's like, oh, yeah, old so-and-so goes up to Saginaw or from the Flint area, knows all about Lamar Woodley. But you hear stories about guys that are in high school like, this guy turned heads. Woodley was one of those as a freshman, greatest football player of all time. And that guy wasn't so far off. So those are the names. And like I said, you can vote actually for all of these guys. But if I was just to vote for 3, Jim Harbaugh, eventually I would vote for him, but I'm going to vote for Mark Messner. Why? He just got into the College Football Hall of Fame. Mess deserves to be in there. He's going to get one of my votes. Henson should already be in there as well. There's just a long list here, and I would go for Romero, Sierra Romero, one of my favorite Michigan softball players of all time. Messner, Henson, and Romero. But the rest of these, I think you could almost put everybody in there. Respert and Low White and Ryan Miller. Those are 3 great Spartans, but I'm not voting for any Spartans over any Wolverines. And so there you go. They do have one last category. We'll take some of your feedback, see if this has they got the coaching finalists. And while I've heard of some of these coaches, none of them with a real Michigan background. Rick Comley, who was Michigan State coach, Bob Parks from Howell, an Eastern Michigan guy, track and field for sure. That's a name that I recall a lot. Oh, I guess I should correct myself. Perry Watson, who coached at Michigan, the longtime Southwestern, when Detroit Southwestern was a powerhouse. The Prospectors were a powerhouse in high school basketball with the Judge, Antoine Jobert, later Jalen Rose. Perry was there, and then he came to Michigan. So, yeah, there is somebody with a Michigan tie there, University of Michigan, and it's Coach Watson. Here are the media finalists: Jack Ebling and Tim Stout, two of the Spartan finest. Ebling, who got his start in journalism and then moved into radio. Stout has been in radio longer than anybody alive. 51st year as a sports talk show host. They didn't have sports talk that long. It's only been around for about 25, 30 years, but Stout's been doing it for 50. Feels like he should be in there just because of that. Don Shane recently passed away. Reggie Hall, a name in Detroit media that you never hear a bad word about. Reggie Hall, who worked in TV for nearly 30 years as a producer. But if I'm voting for 3 here, I'm going to be biased. Doc Emmerich deserves to be in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. He's great. Terry Foster, this is where it becomes biased, a friend of mine. I'll vote for Terry Foster. And if anyone out there is going to vote, go ahead and throw Terry Foster a 10. T. Foss. Put him in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. That would be great. And out of the others remaining here, Ebling, Hall, Shane, and Stout, I'd give my 3rd vote to Reggie Hall. That's how I would do it. But you can vote for everyone. But just for entertainment purposes of the show, I decided to just vote for 3. Let's see if any of those names jumped out to anyone else as we are here. Let's see. Scott talking about Michigan's linebackers, Colson, Hausman, and Barrett. A pretty good group of linebackers. I agree. Mark says PFS has Corum as their highest rated player ever. So good outlook. Yeah, they love themselves some Blake Corum. Venice still wants to see Junior Colson take the next step. Bayrola played 1 year. I think he's talking about Henson or Larry Foote, maybe. Dave, yes, Henson made a stop here, didn't play too much. Not only did he not play very much, I looked it up. He completed 1 pass with the Detroit Lions. Jason, Foote will always be a Steeler, and Henson will always be a Yankee. Well, that's right. You win 2 Super Bowls for a team. You're going to be it's going to be black and yellow for you. And yeah, Henson took Steinbrenner's money. He played for the Cowboys and did he have 1 start, threw 1 career touchdown, and then came up to the Lions for whatever it was there. That's it. Mark says Henson had trouble with the curve. Bayrola. I like you, Bayrola. Welcome in. Benny Blades is his favorite Lion all time. Gotta admit, I like Mr. Blades myself. Mark's on a run today. What are you going to say about Ryan Miller? Got scored on twice. BTB. I don't know what that stands for. By a 12-year-old AAA kid. One-on-one drill from my son's AAA team while visiting the practice. Even he thought it was hilarious. Yeah, one of the great all-time goalies in college, and that's half bad for as long as he played in the pros either. What I can tell you about Ryan Miller is back when I worked in Ann Arbor and I was going to the Yost Ice Arena, before they had the renovations of the south side of the rink where I think they put the band there now, there was nothing. They had band over in the one corner and the other, but directly behind the goal, there was nothing. It was just flat cement. I mean, like you would look at it and say, wow, why didn't they utilize that area? I don't know. But as a member of the media, I could climb over there and take a folding chair. I could have driven a car up there for as much room, and I could put it right behind the goal. And so when Ryan Miller, Michigan State in town, I had the cat's bird's eye view of Miller there, and it was tremendous. I'm trying to think if I can remember. Somebody scored one of the greatest goals. Maybe I can remember it. I'd have to look at the Michigan hockey roster or something. It's just not coming it's not coming there. It's not clicking. Must not have been that great of a goal. One of the greatest goals ever, and I can't remember it. Richard, what the Lions and Michigan both need are kick returners like Mel Gray used to be. I loved Mel Gray. Mel Gray. I think Michigan's going to be okay when it comes to kick returners. I know they lost H.A. Henning, but I think they're going to be okay there. Gary Withers talking about Rick Leach. Richard, for some reason, saying Mark Champion. I would not vote for Mark Champion myself, but that's something personal. Let's see. Kenneth, go Doughboys. Pershing in the house. Let's go. Richard says he stopped Brady from being a college name, talking about Drew Henson. Well, he certainly played a factor in his story. I think they have 30 for 30s on Tom Brady. When you talk about him at Michigan, the name Drew Henson comes up and figures in prominently in Tom Brady's career while he was at Michigan. Drew Henson never started a game at quarterback when Tom Brady was in Ann Arbor. There's a lot of people that make it sound like, Henson started games in front of him, but that never did happen. And in fact, he only started 2 games in the second half while Tom Brady was at Michigan. The first one at Syracuse, and that 1913 game. And then the other one was against Michigan State. the 35-34 score, somewhere around there. I always thought, being at that game, that, the Michigan was never winning that game. It was the defensive line that was so dominant. And then, Brady at the end was whipping the ball all over the place. Come to find out, he was pretty good at that. Maybe the Michigan would have won it if they would have went with Tom Brady there. But that's it. That's it. Good stuff. That's all. If you want to vote, Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, do that. Tomorrow, we will bring in a former Wolverine. And as I have been told by some of his teammates, a Hall of Famer in the state of Michigan high school ranks, the great Jim Scarcelli, the scar of the telestrator. He will join us tomorrow, as per usual, at least in the off season, on Wednesdays here on the Maize Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. Thanks, everybody, so much for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Until then, have a great day. I'm going to mow the lawn. Not really. I thought it would be nice to say, though, considering everything that went on.